Hi, guys. My name is Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach, and you are listening to the Head Smack podcast. You hear?
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack podcast. My name is Paul Pavolny. I am excited to have Richard Kaufman with me today. He is the CEO of a lot of things and doing a lot of things and impacting a lot of people. And he's also gone from dope dealer to hope dealer. And so we're going to have a great conversation on Head Smack today with a true misfit. And I'm excited to have you here, Richard. Welcome.
My brother from another mother, thank you so much for having me. There's just two Italian guys sitting here hanging out, having fun today.
This is awesome, man. All right, so your bio says from dope dealer to hope dealer. So I like to start off by hearing people's origin story, and so even before going even earlier than hope dealer, let's talk about what led to that point. Like, what was some of the origin story, the early days of Richard, and then what was that transition like? When did it turn into a hope dealer?
All right, I'll just give you a quick down and dirty about who I am. I'm many things, but I'm a walking dichotomy. I'm the guy that your mother told you don't hang out with, but I'm also the guy, if you're walking down the street at night, I'm the guy that you want on your side protecting you. I've been divorced twice, married to my beautiful bride now. So I'm a lot of different things, but pretty much I'm just a guy that knows a guy. I'm a junkie who got lucky. And my story is dad left when I was 3 months old. Mom was an addict. Thank God she's clean over 30 years. She got clean after I got clean.
That's awesome.
And we moved 13 different places before fifth grade. So I never made a lot of friends. I had severe ADHD. I had dyslexia. So I was called stupid. I was called dumb in school. So I got thrown out of school in high school at ninth grade. So I'm a ninth grade dropout. I don't even have a GED, but I'm a 3-time top selling author. Even though I haven't even finished high school. But I had my first drink at 11, full-blown alcoholic by the age of 13. Dropped out of school, like I said, joined the military, spent 2 years there and got thrown out for being an addict. Got back in, which nobody ever really does, but I got back in, was about to be thrown out for a second time just for being an idiot. And 9/11 actually saved my life. I almost went to jail for 5 years for grand larceny, and that's what got me sober. And then I got back in the military, and I went from worst soldier of all time to soldier of the year within 3 years. Got promoted to be a non-commissioned officer. Ended up doing.
So what happened in 9/11 that changed everything?
Well, where I'm sitting right now, if I go sit on my front porch, I'm actually standing in the shadows of the Twin Towers where they once stood. So
Oh, wow.
that's where I'm from. I'm 10 minutes from Manhattan, and I knew people that were in the buildings that day. And as I'm watching it live, because when it happened, it was live. There was no editing.
Right.
You could hear the bodies crashing. You could see the people jumping. And then when they were pulling bodies out of the Pentagon, that really hit me, because as I'm watching everything happen, to the right of the TV is all my stuff that I got to turn in, because I'm going to be thrown out for the second time.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, Rich, you wasted 27 years of your life. And these mom and dads, they were going to work, and they were planning on coming home, and they're not coming home. And that's when I literally wrote that in my first book. I literally crumbled into my couch, and I cried out to the Lord. I said, Lord, give me another chance. Let me help as many people as I can that can't help themselves. So when I woke up on 9/11, I was not the same man that went to bed on 9/11. So 9/11 actually turned my whole life around. And like I said, I went from worst to first. And then after 23 years in the military, I got hurt on duty and lost 60% of my vision. And you can't see, you can't shoot. We don't need you. So they medically discharged me Labor Day 2012, and that was the day I attempted suicide. Thank God my six-month-old daughter saved my life. And from that day on is when I decided to make a choice that, there's other people out there that are struggling. So let me help other people that are struggling with the same things that I was. And that's how, with a chance meeting, a chance lunch with Gary Vaynerchuk, he's the one that started me on the podcast. He told me to write the book. He came up with the comeback coach. So if it wasn't for Gary Vaynerchuk, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And now I'm just having fun trying to change millions of lives by helping the one person. So in a nutshell, that's it.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot to talk about there. You talked about the second time that you went into the military, that you went from being terrible, almost getting kicked out, to being the best. What changed? What changed in you that took you from almost getting kicked out to being the best?
Well, they gave me my 100th chance because I was in so much trouble. I was in their offices more than they were in their offices. And when I went in that day on 9/11, they said they seen something in my eyes, that I wasn't the same man that I was previously. And at that moment is when I realized what I'm doing is not working.
Yeah.
So what are the successful people doing? And that's when I decided, okay, I got drill coming up this weekend. Let me get there 2 hours early before everybody else and scope it out, see who's getting there. And when I got there, there were people there already, and I was pissed off. So, and then when all the other soldiers went home, there were certain people that stayed 2 hours later. And that's when I figured out, even like I'm in recovery for 35 years now. I haven't had a drink since 1989. I realized that the successful people got to the meetings early, stayed late, and served people during the meetings. So that's when I decided, okay, success leaves clues. So let me find out what the successful people are doing, and that's what I did. But now here I am. I lost my rank again. I was an E nothing. I had no rank at all. And I'm following these E7s, E8s, captains, colonels around. I want to know what they're doing. So I was a pain in the ass. But, whatever they asked me to do, they asked me to volunteer. I volunteer for every little thing I volunteer for until they got sick of me volunteering. And they're like, yeah, no more. Send somebody else. But that's when I realized if you want to be successful, find out what the successful people are doing and then start implementing it into your life.
And you said the next big change for you was you said your daughter changed your life. What happened there?
Well, I had a 6-month-old daughter, and what happened was Labor Day 2012 is when they decided, well, we're going to medically discharge you. And I knew it was coming, but I didn't know how I was going to react. And for 23 years after I was given a second chance, I did everything I could to become the ultimate soldier.
Yeah.
And when they no longer tell you, well, you're no longer Sergeant Kaufman. Well, who am I? Who's Richard?
Right.
I don't know who Richard is. Everything, my whole life is planned around the military. I mean, I got a wife, a beautiful bride. I love my bride. I got beautiful children, but I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
And it scared me to death and I felt like I failed my family. I don't have a career anymore. I don't have vision. I lost 60% of my vision. I felt like a total failure. And I figured because in the military, if you die on duty, your family gets a large sum of money.
Yeah.
So I figured if I took myself out, they would be set for a while. And, but like, Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth or you get smacked in the head,
Yeah.
So what happened was I had a brand new Dodge Ram 1500 and I'm like, all right, my goal was to get the truck up to 100 miles an hour put it on cruise control, turn up the radio, shut my eyes, and I'm going to go off the road eventually. And in
Yeah.
New Jersey,
Wow.
if you go off the road, you're going to hit a concrete barrier. So I call my wife. Now, this is the hardest part is when you know you're going to talk to somebody for the last time.
Mm.
And I was talking to my wife and I just said, yeah, I love you. I have always loved you. I love the boys. I love I love our girl. But I knew I wasn't going to see her again. And
Yeah.
so we hung up because we were supposed to be down the shore and I was supposed to meet her down the shore for the weekend. And I got in the truck and I hit the 100 miles an hour and I put it on cruise and I turned the radio on and I could feel the truck. Truck is moving. And on the side of the highways, they have the little reflectors.
Right.
And
Right. The
you can
little,
hear
yeah.
click, 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 click. And I knew I was like 3 seconds from death. And I closed my eyes. Now, guys, I'm a heavy metal guy. I'm an old hip hop head. So I had country music on for some reason. And I closed my eyes and I'm listening to the words. And the song came on. It's called Today. It was a song called "I Saw God Today" by Mr. Clint Black, and it talks
Wow.
about a man seeing his newborn baby doll for the first time, and I could just picture myself seeing my daughter for the first time. And I was the first one to ever change her diaper, feed her, burp her. I was the first. I never missed a doctor's appointment, and that hit me. And I'm like, I could be a father or a husband, or I can be a statistic.
Yeah.
And at that moment, my tires actually got into the dirt, and I actually jerked the wheel. Thank God there was nobody to my left.
Yeah.
And I pulled
Yeah.
over,
Wow.
and I called my wife, and I told her what happened, and she was pissed off. But I told her, I said, I need help.
Yeah.
If I don't get help, I'm probably going to go home and blow my brains out. And she said,
Wow.
don't worry, I got you. And they got me into the VA on that Tuesday, and I've been in therapy ever since. So if
Yeah.
it wasn't for God putting that song in there and my daughter being there, I probably wouldn't be here today. So that's why
Wow.
I always say that there's certain times in life that you have to listen to that still small voice, and you have to listen to it, and you have to decide to make a decision to not be a statistic like I almost became a statistic.
Right. Right. Well, and
So
then, God does have a way of, reaching out and putting those things in our life, and sometimes we miss it. Sometimes we look for the loud sound, we look for the shout, we look for the fireworks and the this is the Lord your God type voice, and sometimes that speaking to us comes from a memory. It comes from simply listening to a song and saying, hey, there's value in your life, and there's people that care about your existence. And sometimes we miss that still small voice, and I think it's because a lot of times we don't allow for the silence. We so fill our lives with noise, we so fill our
yeah,
lives with constantly, we have these devices in our hands now that has access to the world's knowledge and entertainment and distraction, right? And so we don't really have a lot of time for pauses, for gaps in the stimulation, and we miss that still small voice. And in your case, you were listening to loud country music, but there was a voice in that that literally saved your life as it flooded back those memories and those thoughts about your daughter and your family. That's amazing, man. And so that was a pretty major turning point for you. And you mentioned you'd met with Gary Vee. At what point did that happen after this event? Like, what was your entrepreneurial journey like
well,
from
what
that point
happened
on?
is in the military, before they medically discharge you, they send you into something called the Warrior Transition Unit. And sometimes it takes 12 to 18 months to medically discharge you. And the first weekend I got there, everybody's playing poker and chess, and because you got nothing to do all day.
Yeah.
But my ADD brain, I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. Now, like I said, I'm a ninth grade dropout, but
Yeah.
I've read over 6,000 books. I have 18 books I'm reading right now, plus 2 audio books, and taking courses on LinkedIn. So I'm like, I can't just sit here. So I started.
Yeah.
The first book I picked up was, and I interviewed the authors, was Rich Dad Poor Dad by
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter. And then I started picking up books by Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss. And I got deep into the whole personal development space. And then I heard Gary Vaynerchuk name be mentioned. I don't remember where. So I took a deep dive into Gary. And for the first year or two, my wife hated Gary Vaynerchuk because that's all I had on that's all I was listening to. I was watching it on YouTube and on my phone. And then I found out that his dad has a liquor store like 20 minutes from my house in Springfield, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I came up with the idea. And I called his dad and I'm like, because I was with GNC at this time. And I'm like, hey, when is Gary going to be there? This is Rich from GNC. I want to have a business meeting. He's like, oh, he's going to be here this day. So I showed up, and Gary's like, what business meeting? I'm like, I just wanted to get in front of you. I just wanted to pick your brains. And I showed up with all his books, and he's like, I got nothing. So thank you. Thankfully, he was so gracious. So he actually signed all my books. He took my Wounded Warrior hat, and it was actually hanging up in his office. And some of the older videos, you'll actually see my Wounded Warrior hat actually hanging up. And he gave me 30 minutes of his time to pick his brain. And so without him, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So
from some of these
to Gary,
from some of those books that you read up to that point, what were some of the things that really started rewiring your brain, that really started taking you from that point of, feeling like there's nothing left to suddenly seeing hope and seeing, potential and kind of setting you on a new path? What were some of the things that stood out to you, or do you feel that most impacted you from reading the Tony Robbins and the Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all of that?
Because, sometimes we get so bogged down in our life, we don't realize the big picture. And I was with GNC, and I think we did we went from 300,000 to 1.4 million in 3 years once I started working there. But then I had to I went to meet somebody, and they were doing $1 million a month. And that's when my mind went,
wow,
there's a bigger picture out there.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, I can speak at an AA meeting to 50 men. But if I start a podcast, I can reach millions with that same message. And that's what, Gary said, you need to write a book. And I'm like, I moved to New Jersey. I knew nobody but my wife and my cousin. That was it. I had 2 friends on Facebook. I had no social media presence. And he's like, write a book. And I'm like, I don't know anybody. I don't have an audience. He's like, don't worry, the audience will show.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't start a podcast. What are you talking about? I have nothing to say. He's like, your backstory is more important than your front story. So start a podcast, and people eventually will show up if you're adding enough value. So that's how it all started, and I'm just grateful for what I do today.
Yeah. What was that first book about?
My first book is called A Hero's Journey from Darkness to Light. Actually, I just gave out 100 free copies. I was speaking I was at a speaking event this week with the kid that was in the movies, in the TV show Sopranos, The Bronx Tale, and we were talking about resilience and recovery. So I gave out 100 copies, free copies. The book is called A Hero's Journey from Darkness to Light. It's my story. At the end of each chapter, it tells you what not to do. Stuff that I did, it teaches you what not to do. And the last 2 chapters are, what does addiction look like? It's not what you think it looks like. And what does depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideations look like? It's not what you think it looks like. So it's also a teaching book, and it's hit #1 twice now. So, and I'm grateful for that. And I've never made a penny off of it. Everything
Wow.
I've made off of it has gone back to help people struggling. So I don't make any money off. I don't make any money off my T-shirts, my hats, my coffee, anything like that. Everything goes back to paying it forward.
Wow, that's amazing. And from that first book, from the people that have read it, you said it's been a #1 bestseller. What are some of the things that people are coming to you as they've read it or as they've contacted you and said, this is what really impacted me, or this is the head smack moments that I had from your book? Do you get a lot of those? Do you hear a lot of people give you feedback?
Yeah, well, guys, now if anybody that knows me knows I'm a low tech redneck. So I actually wrote the book on yellow copy paper. I just found the yellow copy paper. I found it this week, um, and then I literally typed everything into the computer. So, and like I said, I'm a ninth grade dropout. So it comes to grammar. I'm asking my wife, what does I before E mean? What does this go here? I still do that to this day. Um, but when they read it, they're like, you know what? The grammar's horrible. It reads like a third grader wrote it, but it's real and it's raw and it's
Yeah,
you. So when people
yeah.
read it, they're like, it sounds exactly like you. I'm like, because I wrote it. So a lot of people say, I'm just glad that you were real and raw about it, and you're not
Yeah.
hiding anything. You're putting everything out there. That's why before we got on the show, I'm listening to the soundtrack to Lose Yourself by Eminem, because that's what Gary said. He said, I want you to write everything all the shit you've ever done, and I want you to
Yeah.
put it out into public, so nobody can ever say anything against you that you haven't already said. So, like when
Wow.
somebody says, Rich, you were a drug addict and alcoholic. Yeah, but I'm clean 35 years. Or somebody could say, you know what, you were eating out of garbage cans and you were eating dog food. I'm like, yeah, but when I go out now, I'm eating top sirloin and I'm eating lobster.
Yeah.
So I already put everything, all the dirty shit I've already done out there. So you can't say anything about me I haven't already said.
There
So
are no surprises. No
there's no surprises.
surprises.
I am
Yeah.
who I am, and you get what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I heard a famous comedian say that um, the thing that's going to get him canceled or in trouble, he's probably already said, but it's just not the time for people to bring that up. But he's probably already said it. He's probably
Yeah.
already done it. And so you've put all of your stuff out there in your first book. Now, so as you moved into further into entrepreneurship and into business and into speaking and writing books, what was the next book, and how far was that between that and the first book?
Just 2012. So it's been 10 years.
Okay.
About 10 years since, and my new book just dropped yesterday.
All right.
So it's been 10 years. My podcast has been 6 years now, 54 episodes with millionaires, billionaires, authors, athletes. So and I tell everybody I'm a ninth grade dropout. So I'm not bringing anything new to the table. I'm just taking everything that I've learned and breaking it down Barney style. Because honestly, I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants, because
Yeah.
realizing we don't really come up with anything new. We're just
Right.
taking what other people have taught us, melding it into our own, and then disseminating it in our way. Because I can't
Right.
be Gary Vee, I can't be Ed Milet, I can't, but I can take what that works for them and then put my personality into it. So,
Yeah.
and
And
that's my
I
goal.
think that's the way it is. Yeah, I think that's the way it is for a lot of people. There's so much out there. And we see it in the marketplace. We see it online, where somebody comes up with a new idea, and it's like, this is exactly the same idea as I heard 10 years ago. It's just coming through a different vehicle, or it's set in a new way. It's kind of like the air fryer is, it's a convection oven. Like we've had those for years. It was just rebranded and recreated and restructured, and for a new generation. And so, a lot of what you're sharing and the experiences that you've had, you're taking what, even if somebody else has said it in some sort of a way or a similar way, you're taking it through your filter and your experiences and your personality, and you're going to attract a different level of person than they will. And so I think, having the same message go out through different people is still super valuable, because there's going to be people that would be turned off to a Tony Robbins, people that are going to be turned off to a Gary Vee, that need to hear a message that you bring in your own unique way, with your own history, with your own backstory. And so, with being a hope dealer, how do you help people with hope?
Well, for me, and I wanted to bring this up, like I said, I've read over 6,000 books. I got 18 going right now, 2 audio books. So sometimes I don't remember where I heard the quotes. So sometimes I feel bad because I'll say something and I'll be like, I wish I remember who said that. And I wish I could give them proper credit because, anytime that I go speak, I try to give credit to the people that have gotten me there. And I think some famous people have kind of gotten caught jammed up because they're putting quotes and then just putting their name under it and knowing so like a lot of times I'll write a quote and I'll write, don't remember who wrote it. So, I don't want to be that guy that steals all the quotes and, doesn't give proper credit to the people that got me there. That's why I'm always giving credit to Gary Vaynerchuk, Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, Patrick Bet-David, John Lee Dumas. Without them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I always try to give the credit to who it belongs to.
Right.
And I think it lends to the credibility. Because if somebody quotes me, I'm like, great, but give me the credit at least.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you want to give credit. And I think sometimes for a lot of people, I know for creatives, especially for me, I absorb so much stuff, and it's kind of like being a sponge. Yeah. And so you absorb from all these different resources, and you look at a menu. For me, I'm a designer, I'm a creative. I do that kind of stuff, and so I'm absorbing from everywhere. And then when it comes time for me to create, it's like a sponge, and you squeeze that sponge, and something unique and different comes out. But it's a culmination of all these influences and stuff. And so, there are many times that even I say stuff, and I'm like, I'm not sure if this is an original thought or if I read it or absorbed it in some random thing that I saw one time, one place, one area. So I think we kind of all had that challenge of, we want to be faithful, we want to be honorable, and all of that to people that have said stuff, but sometimes it's tough to keep track of it all.
That's why even in my book, I even wrote in the acknowledgments, I'm like, guys, I'm going to forget people. I'm going to forget who said what, so I'm apologizing in advance before you even read this.
And so with your latest book that you said just dropped, tell me a little bit about that, and tell me a little bit about how you're helping people and teaching them about resilience. And so your book is The Podcasting Blueprint: Mastering Purpose, Power, and Profit. And so a book that just launched, and we'll share at the end of the podcast on where you can get a copy of it. Tell me a little bit about, before we go into the book, about resilience in life and business. How do you help people with that? And what do you share with them about those moments that they need that help?
And, I try not to curse, but sometimes it is warranted. We're all going through the same shit. Whether you're the CEO or you're the janitor, we're all going through some stuff. And CEOs just have bigger, more expensive problems, but we're all going through the same stuff. So I teach people, if you're struggling with mental health, physical health, spiritual health, I can help you. If you're struggling with your business, I can help you because, like I said, some of my closest friends are millionaires and billionaires. And like I know I can just pick up the phone, call David Meltzer. He's got a $20 billion business. I'm like, Dave, my brother's struggling. What advice would you give him? So for me, and in writing this book, I've spent up to over $70,000 on courses, on going to events, on talking to people, going to masterminds, and I've spent over 11,000 hours studying resiliency. So I'm just taking what I've been taught and teaching others in my own way. It all comes down to the same thing, but like I said, the CEO and the janitor, they're all dealing with the same mental stuff. And sometimes the CEO is struggling more than the janitor because the CEO is the top dog and he's got nobody to go to.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the CEO, when the buck stops with you and you don't really have anybody to talk to, CEOs and entrepreneurs have a very high suicide rate. There's a reason why.
Yeah. Well, and you said it all comes down to the same stuff. What is that same stuff?
Well, a lot of it, and I was dealing with this yesterday and this morning, being on your show, and then I'm going to be on another show in an hour and a half. And then yesterday, two people I interviewed, one was worth 8 figures. The other young lady I talked to was a 3-time best-selling author, a millionaire. She's a mountain climber that climbed the 5 tallest mountains in the world. And I'm thinking, why am I talking to you? Imposter syndrome is a bitch. So, a lot of people deal with imposter syndrome. A lot of people, they don't realize that failure is an event. It's not a person. Yeah. And just because they fail, if you learn from it, it wasn't a failure. And, and if you fail, make sure you fail forward. Right. Because, the average multimillionaire has lost up to 7 businesses.
Wow.
So, a lot of people are dealing and they're thinking about, I failed at this. And, even Edison, look how many times he failed until he figured it out. So, we're all dealing with the same stuff. It's just a lot of people are afraid to talk about, what they're dealing with and their struggles. And I tell them, listen, if I can do this, anybody can do this. I know I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but if I can do this, anybody can do it. And that's where the hope comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when it comes to dealing with resilience and especially with imposter syndrome, how do you help people and how do you deal with that yourself?
Well, my first thing is, before we even got on, I'm writing an article for LinkedIn and Entrepreneur Magazine talking about, you got to know where you're at before you can know where you're going. So I usually delve, because they call me, even on my show, they call me the male Oprah or the G.I. Joe Rogan. So I go deep.
G.I. Joe Rogan.
So I go deep and I get to know the person. And then I'm like, all right, tell me your failures, but also show me your wins. And because Gary Vee that always says on, and like I said, forgive me for the cursing, but he said, triple down on what you're good at and fuck what you're not good at. So what I'll do is I'll go back, and even in my mind, if I'm struggling, I'll go back and I'm like, wait a minute, you won Soldier of the Year. You become, you're on sometimes you rank above Gary Vee, Ed Milet, Tim Ferriss on the rankings. So when I'm feeling down, I'm like, all right, what are my wins? Like James Clear wrote in his amazing book, Atomic Habits. Make sure you stack your wins. And a lot of people remember their losses more than they remember their wins. So I kind of, even like Michael Jordan said, he's missed over 9,000 shots. He's missed the game winner 300 times, but he's got 6 titles and he's the GOAT. So, I think sometimes you have to think when you're having a bad game, all right, remember that game that I did win? Remember when I was holding the title? And that can get you back into the winning mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think that setting up those memorials, it's biblical. In the Bible, they talked about setting up the landmarks and the milestones and things so when children ask, what do those stones mean? You can tell the story. And so I think setting up those kind of memorial stones in our own lives, remembering the stories, remembering the things that made you, overcome something, the things that changed your life, the things that impacted you, the things that you're good at, the victories, the things worth remembering, and remembering those stories and documenting those, I think is pretty powerful. one of the other things that you had mentioned, you went from dope dealer to hope dealer. Why is hope so important?
Because that's what we need more than ever. We need hope, because we're in such a world where everything is doom and gloom. And for me, I've been on a news diet for the last 3 years. I haven't watched the news in 3 years because I protect my reticular activating system. Because I know my RAS system, guys, if you don't know an RAS system, you need to check it out. I know that, and I learned it from Tim Ferriss, Ed Milet, and Tony Robbins, that my brain, or our brain, is kind of like our social media feeds. Whatever you look at, whatever you like, and whatever you heart is what they're going to show more of. And the brain is the same way. So if I'm looking for positives, I'm going to find positives. If I'm looking for negatives, I'm going to find negatives. And I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Mr. Napoleon Hill. And then I wonder, well, who did he learn from? And he learned from Mr. Carnegie. And something that, Mr. Carnegie said, his book was like 15 hours audio version. But the one thing I got out of it, he said, your obsessions become your possessions.
Oh, wow.
So whatever you think about is what's gonna come. And we just using the RAS system. So when I tell anybody, if you want to change your life, watch what you're listening to and watch what you're watching. It'll change your life. You can change your whole life in 30 days if you just use the Facebook method. For 30 days, if you just heart and like everything that's positive and swipe everything that's negative, in 30 days, your life is different, totally different, because your mind's going to find whatever you're looking for. Whether it's happiness or whether it's sadness, you're going to find it.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that example of the algorithm, changing the algorithm of your mind, is, like and heart the right stuff, and you'll see more of that stuff. That's powerful. I think for somebody that alone is going to be a pretty big head smack moment, because they've probably found themselves scrolling through the negatives. There are some social platforms now that, are extremely negative. They're very unfiltered. They're very negative. And there's people that spend a lot of time there and they lose hope. I think that's such a, hope is such a critical thing that, you can go without food and water for a while, but you lose hope. That'll end you sooner than pretty much anything else. Is once you have no hope that there isn't a better future, there isn't a change coming, there isn't something on the other side of this pain. When you lose hope, that's the worst thing you can lose.
I mean, just think about, why did the Jews walk 40 years in the desert? If they didn't have the hope that there was something good at the end, then why walk? It's kind of like even any faith you have. If you don't have faith that there's something good, better at the end of your life, what's worth living today? So you got to have hope. And I'm the hope guy. If somebody says, well, my glass is half full and mine, I'm like, listen, if my glass is half full with liquid, the other half is full with air. So my glass is still full. And if my glass is empty, I'm going to sell it. So either way, I'm going to win no matter what. So I'm the hope. I am the guy that I look at everything as an optimist. I'm definitely not a pessimist whatsoever.
Yeah, I love that. What is, when it comes to hope, what are some of the other things that you've found? I love the idea of the swiping and the algorithm. What are some other things that you've found that has drained people's hope?
Guys, listen, it's probably the people that you live with in your own house. Because a lot of times, like I love my bride. She's my everything, my best friend for the last 40 years. But she doesn't walk the journey with me that I'm on. And that's okay, because she hates podcasts. She will not listen to podcasts. She's like, I hate it. I'm not going to listen to it. I don't even listen to your episodes, so I'm not going to listen to anybody else's. But if I stop my journey because it doesn't jive with hers, then sometimes we get so bogged down listening to other people, taking their advice, or we take advice from people that haven't done what we want to do.
Right.
If you come to me and you're 18 years old and you tell me you're a life coach, I'm probably not going to listen. Or if you're 18 years old and have abs, I'm probably not going to say, hey, can you give me some fitness advice? But, a lot of times we try to take advice from people who haven't even done what we want. So somebody can say, why should you be a best-selling author? You didn't even finish school. But, if I would have listened to that, I wouldn't be. And I think we get so bogged down and worried about what other people say. And the bottom line is, when we die and we meet our maker, we're the only ones going.
Yeah.
Nobody around us is going with us.
Yeah.
So, sometimes as long as you're doing the right thing and not hurting anybody, you're on your own journey. So make sure that you're enjoying the journey as you're going through it. And it might not be for everybody, and that's okay. Their journey's not yours, and, your journey's not theirs.
Yeah. So what gives you hope?
Well, I am a man of faith. I give all I give my honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I was talking about this on the show yesterday. I write my obituary every year, and I keep it in my wallet. And I make sure that if I say in my obituary that I'm going to be a great husband, I need to be a great husband. If I say I'm going to be a great father, I need to be present. I need to, be there, take care of my kids. So for me, I have to live up to my obituary. And, I have a lot of hope because, that's the man that I'm not there yet, but that's the man I want to be. Yeah. But I also have, as I'm living, I have a vision board. And on my phone, I have the beach house we're going to be getting. I have the boat, the picture of the boat. I got the picture of the truck. And on my vision board, I've had it for 10 years. Things are finally coming into fruition. Like I've always wanted to go to Atlantis in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
My wife, out of the blue, said, "Hey, we're going on a cruise to Atlantis." So it's been on my vision board for 10 years, but it's really coming true.
Wow.
So sometimes, you have hope, just don't give up that hope because it may not be the time yet, but the time will come as long as you're putting it into your RAS system and you're looking for it to come true.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, definitely having a something that, you're praying for, you're pushing for, you're driving for, that's motivating you, and attainable. I mean, if it's unattainable, sometimes you could lose hope as you don't see the progress. But having these attainable things that can start building the hope, and then you start dreaming bigger and bigger and bigger. But having these attainable hope things that you could reach for, I think is pretty important.
But I also want you have to you have to become emotionally involved.
Yeah.
Or like I had a friend, he's a high earner, and he's like, "Bro, I want to buy a Lambo," and I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "I'm going to pick you up in an hour." I picked him up in an hour. We went to the Lambo dealer. We got in the car. He smelled the leather, took it for a test drive, smelled the leather, had the wind going through his hair, smelled the oil in the engines. Within 6 months, he bought the car.
Yeah.
Because now there was emotional attachment to it. Like I have the beach house. I have it right on my phone. It's the beach house that I want. It's the boat that I want. I've actually walked on the boat already. When we go to the Bahamas, I'm actually looking at some houses I'm going to walk through. I want to smell the wood. I want to look at the paint. Yeah. So I'm emotionally involved. If you just have a goal, I want to be a millionaire, but you don't have any emotion involved in it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's really, really good. That's really, really good. And so I want to talk about, in our time here, as well as, you held up the book, you just released it. I want to talk a little bit about what got you to the point of writing the book, and tell us a little bit about the book as well.
Well, the book, and actually the whole back cover is written by Mr. John Lee Dumas. and he's my teacher, my mentor, and he gets over 100 million downloads a month, and I think he's making over 250,000 a month on his podcast.
Wow.
So he taught me, and he's my mentor, and I give him all the credit. But for me, when I started podcasting, I had to listen to Gary Vee. I had to go here. I had to spend $11,000 hours and $70,000 in courses. I just wanted to put it together to create one book that's 54 pages to where, and my friend Brandon, actually, I use his quote. He said, you can buy the book but at breakfast time and have a podcast by dinner.
Nice.
I just wanted it to be like a podcast in a box. So all you got to do is, if you buy the book version or if you buy the e-version, you can actually just click everything and you can have a podcast up and running within a couple hours.
Nice.
So that's why I wanted to do that. This way I can, give something to somebody that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And everything in both books, they're all clickable. And there's ways you can get in touch with John Lee. There's ways you can start an affiliate program. There's ways you can join Lisbon or whatever. So everything is clickable. So all you have to do is say, oh, I want to join Spotify. Let me click here. I want to join Apple. Let me click here. So it's nice. Kind of like I'm a big fan of the For Dummies book. It's kind of like a book for dummies. It teaches you this is how to do it. You want to get it done. Just do this, do this, and you can go from thought to profit in less than 8 weeks.
That's amazing. And so with your podcast, you've had that for quite a while. How many episodes do you have at this point?
1,254. We're six years in, and I think we're approaching 3 million downloads, somewhere around there. So, and I'm still That's going. Amazing. I'm still enjoying the process. I did 6 interviews yesterday, and I'm just having fun, enjoying life. And when you find your purpose, everything else is off the table when you're having fun.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely having fun doing this podcast. I mean, I just launched it. I've got a series of interviews that I've already done. Absolutely enjoying doing this. And so podcasting is definitely a way to kind of find your tribe and find your vibe of what you like doing and stuff. And so tell people the name of your podcast and what it's about, who's it for, who's going to benefit most from it, and share a little bit about it.
Well, first of all, guys, I am the worst podcaster ever. And I mean ever. So when I tell you this, you're going to be like, yeah, he is the worst. I had a podcast. My first podcast was called Success Your Why Powers Your How. I had 300 recorded and released episodes before I realized it was never even on iTunes.
Oh, wow.
And I called the guys at Apple, and I wanted to put it on. They're like, yeah, no. You have over like 400 hours. We're not going to put it on. So I started over again with the Vertical Momentum podcast with no guests, no audience. But I started off because I already had the experience. Now I just had to figure out what I did wrong and improve it. And then I figured, okay, having, success, your why, powers your how is cool, but how am I going to put that on a t-shirt? How am I going to put that on a hat? How am I going to put that on swag or coffee? So now I have all of those things, but, I took my failure, I made it better, and now I'm helping others do that. But it's called Vertical Momentum. I did not come up with the name with it, by the way. My friend Daniel Faust came up with the name of it, so I want to give him honor and credit. And it's all about anybody that's struggling in life or business, because sometimes people, once you hit, I'm 55 now, and a lot of people, when they hit my age, they're like, oh, it's over. I'm in the, second half of my life. I just want to settle down and retire. And I'm like, not me. I'm just ramping up. Because I realized, and I was at a funeral yesterday, that you average 5 years after somebody after they retire, they expire. So for
Wow.
me, I'm not ready. I got a
Yeah.
lot of shit I want to do. So I'm just ramping up. And that's what the podcast is about, is it's giving hope and let people know, just because, your past doesn't dictate your future. So
Yeah.
even if you're over 50, you have a whole nother half of your life. Well, what are you going to do now? What's next? And so that we
Yeah.
just teach you how to become resilient and how to live your best life now, and not say, when I retire, I'm going to be able to enjoy life. No, you got to retire. You got to enjoy your life now. And that's what the podcast is about.
Yeah. Yeah. I launched this podcast on my 55th birthday. So yeah, it's not over when you hit your 50s, that's for sure. Especially in 2024, I think 50 is a very different 50 than it used to be. And so well done in what you're doing with the podcast. And so for people that want to get a hold of you, people that want to be a part of your world, people that want to get a hold of your book, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, the new book is available. It's called, the Podcasting Blueprint. But what I'm offering is, it ended April 1st, but for you and your audience, I'm going to keep it. If you buy the book is $30. You get an autographed copy. You get an hour to spend with me to help out with whatever I can help you out with your podcast. I'll have you come on my show. I'll promote your business and give you over $1,000 in bonuses for spending $30. And
awesome.
I also do have one-on-one coaching, but it's very limited. I think I have one slot left where I'll actually work with you for 8 weeks to get your podcast from thought to profit in 8 weeks. And I got two of my clients, their podcasts are dropping next week, and they're already have sponsors before their podcast even drops.
Wow.
So
Now, I've heard people say not to think about getting sponsors until you've hit a certain amount of downloads or a certain amount of episodes. And you're saying to immediately get sponsors as you launch into it?
it's kind of like saying, okay, I was going to put out that TV show, but I don't want sponsors yet. Really? I'm like,
Yeah.
because, a lot of us, and the reason why the average podcast lasts 13 episodes is because, number one, they don't have a purpose. It's just, I want to start a podcast because everybody else starts a podcast. Number two is they don't have a powerful podcast. If you don't have a powerful podcast, nobody's going to listen. Third of all, if your podcast is not profitable and making money, and you're taking everything out of your pocket, eventually you're going to be like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So why not start off right out of the gate making money, so you can invest in hiring a team? Like, I have a team that does my Facebook, that does my YouTube, that does my graphics. So if you're all coming out of your pocket, you're not going to last long. Yeah. So that's what I teach people. Listen, start off on the get with having sponsors, having your podcast. Like, our podcast is on 35 different platforms.
Wow.
So, and we teach that, why start off in the hole?
Yeah.
If somebody would say, okay, we're going to give you a business. Either you can start in the hole, or I can give you $100,000. Which one do you want? You're probably going to stay in business if you have capital. Right, if you don't have capital, you're probably going to be out of business. And the average podcast lasts 13 episodes. There's 3 million podcasts out there, but only 500,000 have released an episode in the last 6 months.
Wow. Well, that sounds amazing. And I do encourage you, if you're thinking of starting a podcast, to definitely reach out to Richard and get a copy of the book, and then all the amazing bonuses that come along with it. The best way to get a hold of the book is to reach out through your website, or is it
actually, and I didn't realize this the other day. Somebody says, what's your biggest flex? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. He's like, well, because a lot of times, like, somebody says, oh, do this or do that. And I'm like, Google me. Yeah. And he's like, what? And I'm like, if you Google the Vertical Momentum Podcast, we're on the first 6 pages of Google. So all you got to do is Google me and direct message me on any platform. It's always me. I don't have a virtual assistant answering my messages. So if you ever reach out, it's always me. So you can reach out to me. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Tumblr, Flickr, TikTok, anywhere, but it's always me. It's nobody else.
That's amazing, man. Well, Richard, this has been a great conversation. I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing your heart, sharing your story, sharing those powerful head smack moments that you had along the way, and then just talking about hope and just that way of looking at hope and what you absorb is just amazing. And I think it's really going to impact people. I think it's going to give them some things to think about, to reflect on. And honestly, I like to tell people that, you know, if you just take one idea and execute it well, it can change your destiny. And I think, you know, simply even just executing today, that idea of what are you liking, what are you pausing on, what thoughts in your thought life, and making sure that it's the right thing, because whatever you think about, you're going to get more of, and you're going to see it in everything, and you're going to see it in the world. And so making sure that you just swiping away the stuff that doesn't need to make a nest in your brain. And so thank you, Richard, so much for those thoughts.
Can I just add one thing before we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to personally invite you to come on the Vertical Momentum podcast. I want you to be my special guest. And I also want to ask guys, if you're listening to this episode, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a 5-star written review for Paul. Every 5-star written review is equal 10 regular star reviews. So make sure you do that. Wow. He's not asking for payment, but that's a great way to help Paul pay it forward.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate that so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep up the head smack.